Hey y'all, Big Tim here, along with Joey. We are headed out on beautiful Lake Cumberland today. We're here at Holcomb's Landing. It's Monday. We both happen to have a day off, which is odd, but we're excited. Gonna go see what kind of fishing mess we can get into.
Joey and I are real excited to get back to Lake Cumberland. I hadn't been since April. Joey had a couple tournaments down there with the BFL, so he'd been down there, a little more recently than I had. But, once we put the boat in, we went right straight across the lake, and the first point that we found, we fished. And granted, we don't catch any fish here, but I thought I'd show you some of the points and stuff that we looked for to catch smallmouth, because that was our goal for the day, to go and catch smallmouth. The FLW series had just caught mostly smallmouth, so we thought we'd go. And, we weren't practicing for any kind of tournament or anything like that, so what the heck, we thought we'd go for smallmouth. And when I go for smallmouth, I generally like to look for these red rocks, and a lot of broken rock. That seems to work best for me. We threw a variety of baits at them. Joey was throwing a jig a lot. I was throwing a Ned rig. And then the wind picked up, and it got very windy. And it made it a little bit more difficult to work that Ned rig, or at least to feel it. I had a pretty heavy head on my Ned bait, but it still was a little bit difficult to feel the bite. But it was a different day anyway. We had a bunch of fish that would bite us and just, not take the bait. A couple of times I felt like the fish were actually nudging the bait toward me with their mouth closed. We set the hook probably a dozen times a piece and would swing and miss, nothing there. We also caught a few short fish, and when I say short, I mean 5 to 8, 9 inches, nothing of any size, nothing of any substance. That's why I got excited on this one. It felt like a good bite, and I thought it was a big fish. Not so much. I don't know what it is, why it happens, but, Joey generally takes lunch first, and then I'll take mine, and he comes up and runs the troll motor. But almost every time he comes up and I'm sitting there eating my sandwich, he gets a bite. In this particular instance, he was throwing a jig, and he just had a small really a do-nothing little rock slide. It was a tiny little rock slide. But it was a nice Kentucky on it. Unfortunately, we come up empty on that one.
Good Kentucky. It's easy for everybody to tell you what to do over the weekend. There we go. There's a better fish. It ain't that big, but it's fun. Fighting like a mother. Large. Now, it's easy for everybody to tell you what happened every weekend, but there's no way we're not getting bit though with this stuff.
One thing about fishing in the fall is, it's always beautiful. You've got the leaves changing and everything else, but the problem is the sun sets pretty early. And down at Lake Cumberland, when you got all the hills and mountains and whatnot, sometimes the sun sets behind those hills at 4 or 4:30. And when it does, man, it can get cold. The sun, heats the everything up so quickly this time of year that when it goes away, boy, it gets cold quick. But here we've got just some basic shots showing you some more of the kinds of banks that we like to fish when we go down there. And, it wasn't a great day, but it was fun to be out. Joey and I, we had a good time. We always do when we get together. We didn't catch a lot of fish, but we talked to a couple other people and they weren't catching them either. We think the pounding that they got the prior week from the FLW series probably had something to do with that. Also some fronts that had been through. And the fish were just acting strange. Like I said, we had several bites that, you'd swing and miss. They were real quick to lay the bait or spit the bait out of their mouth. So it was still a fun time to be on the water, and I look forward to going to Lake Cumberland anytime I can get there, even if I don't catch anything. I love going to Lake Cumberland. There's always something happening. You can possibly get into stripers, and I admit this time we didn't even go looking for stripers, and kind of wished we would have. But we couldn't find any shad, so I didn't think we'd be able to find stripers. One thing we did see when we finally found shad, the day was so odd, and this is one of those things. The shad were stuck to the very bottom in 30 feet of water. Most of the time when you go to Cumberland, or any lake for that matter, you'll see the shad suspended. And these guys were, about a foot off the bottom, and they were just staying there. And they were 3/4 of the way back in the creek, and they were stuck to the bottom. We didn't see any game fish around with them. They might have been mixed in where you couldn't see them on the depth finder. But, we never did see anything on the graph. We didn't catch much other than, what you see here. We had the one spot on a topwater bait, and then I had largemouth on a baby brush hog. But, like I said, still all in all, a fun day. So one of the things that I don't like about Holcomb's Landing is the fact that it's a long walk from this boat dock to the parking lot. Which, yeah, granted the water is down, but it's kind of a long walk anyway, even if the water's the normal pool. But we got real lucky here. There was some guys that are just pulling their boat on the trailer. Joey went over and offered to help him, and he hitched a ride up to the top of the parking lot with them. So I'm sure he was real appreciative of that. Like I've said many times, I like to be efficient. And one of the things, a lot of guys, when they're waiting on their partner to go up and get the trailer, they'll play on their phone and everything else. And, for me, being efficient means going ahead and getting the rods put away. I like to get all my stuff put away so that when we get to the restaurant or whatever, we don't have to worry about it getting stolen off the front deck. So that's what I do. When Joey or whoever I'm fishing with goes up to get the truck, I try to
Boy,
put
you
my stuff
lucked out
away.
there.
Now, if I'm just fishing the river, a lot of times I'll leave the stuff on my front deck and then just put it in the garage. But on a trip like this, you're generally going to get something to eat for dinner. You don't want to leave that stuff laying out where somebody can just walk up and grab it. So I'm putting it in the rod locker. Now, that being said, you'll notice every rod that I have has a rod sock on it. And putting these rods in the rod lockers, those rod socks make a giant difference. If you haven't invested in rod socks, you need to do yourself a favor, because they will save you wear and tear on your rods. Plus, they're easier to get in and out, and they're just a benefit all around. Hey y'all, thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll get some more trips into Lake Cumberland this fall and winter. Although right now I have to wonder, because it's very cold here. We've got snow on the ground, and who knows, our season may be finished. Hopefully we get a couple more 50-degree days when I'm actually scheduled off, and we can get down to Cumberland. But until then, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.